Greetings everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. I want to dive into more Dark Envoy content, and this time let's go ahead and talk about the companions. First and foremost, the main reason you are going to choose one party member over another is definitely the mechanics. There are times where they have banter or chime in during your quest, but even if you don't have the correct party member on your team, the game will just pull that person in and make them part of the cutscene. So you don't have to worry about, oh, well, this particular quest is happening, so let me bring this particular party member with me. The game will just handle that for you. There is a little bit of banter, but it's definitely not a focus of the game. And so essentially, your choice about who you want to have on your team is really going to come down to what they can do in combat. There are 5 party members you can recruit throughout the game. All of them come as a part of the main story, so you don't have to worry about missing anybody. The first party member you're going to come across is Benedict. He's a guard in the town where you start the game, and basically decides it's his responsibility to protect the siblings, so he comes along during your adventures. Now, me personally, I use him very rarely because he is locked into being a warrior, which is definitely a nice class, but unfortunately he's also locked into the Guardian specialization. And the Guardian specialization is obviously geared around tanking, so taunting enemies, mitigating damage, and things of that nature. This can absolutely be a very effective way to play the game, but you don't really need a tank. There are other classes who are able to tank while also having a focus on damage. And even if you don't have anybody tanking, you can use other things such as debuffs or just changing up your play style that'll allow you to play the game very well without having a tank on your team. And so I find that when I brought him along, he was definitely bringing up the rear as far as doing damage and really wiping out enemies the way that I wanted him to. And so because of that, I used him very rarely, but he might make complete sense for your particular playstyle. Now, your next 3 party members, you get them all pretty much at the same time. There's not a real introduction for most of them. They kind of just say, hey, you guys are doing this, we'll go ahead and help you, let's all work together, right? And so one of them is Cecilia. Cecilia is an elf, and her class is Ranger. So Ranger's going to be focused on a lot of range damage, and you can either go the poison route where you're going to get additional damage against enemies that are poison, or you can try to stack up critical hit chance and critical damage to do damage that way. There's basically a ton of different options about how you could play this character. She is in the bounty hunter specialization, which is fantastic, and Ranger is fantastic all the way around. So this character is one that I used a lot during my personal playthrough. She absolutely carves through enemies. You won't regret putting her on the team. The next party member is also someone I enjoy using quite a bit, Leon. Leon is an engineer, and they're focused on doing electricity damage and throwing out mounted guns, things of that nature, in order to deal with enemies on the field. Even better, he's locked into the constructor specialization, which focuses on being able to use robots on the field in order to deal with enemies. This is absolutely fantastic. The robots do a ton of damage, and you can use them as tanks. In fact, the first robot he gets, the Construct Automaton, you can use a version of it that will taunt nearby enemies when summoned, and the ultimate version of it, the Titan, also has a more defensive version which flat out has the taunt ability. So even after its first summon, it can use taunt in order to bring in more enemies, and it has chains and rocket fists as well. So you can use someone like Leon to control the battlefield, taunt enemies, and pull them in without having someone who's set aside as a tank. Because again, the robots, and frankly Leon, when he has these robots out, because of some of his passives, they'll all do fantastic damage while tanking on the battlefield as well. Next on the list is Vaso. She is also an elf and she is locked into the Adept class. Adept is all about dealing elemental damage, whether with fire or with ice, and it's focused on potentially doing more powerful weapon damage due to the manner of skills that you've used as well. She's locked into the combat medic class, which personally I don't like, because you don't really need to have a dedicated healer in the game, at least when you're playing on normal. I have no idea what it's like when you're playing on hard or the insanity or whatever the hardest difficulty is. So having a medic might be more useful in those situations, but on normal you don't need a medic, and so having her specialization be one that focuses on healing doesn't really appeal to me, so I don't use her all that often. But even so, the base Adept kit is absolutely fantastic, so you still might find it useful to go ahead and throw her on your team. And then last on the list is Kim. I don't remember what the name of her race is called. I'm sorry, I literally just recruited her, but she's very obviously not an elf and she's not a human either. You get one party member based upon which rival faction you choose to side with in the game. So I chose to side with the League, and this is what I got. I know if you side with the Empire, you get a construct who is a sharpshooter, which is a specialization of the Ranger class. Kim is actually also an Adept, which, as I've already mentioned, is fantastic, but she's a summoner. Yes, there's a summoner for engineer, and then Adept has its own version of summoner, and it's actually pretty freaking cool. She's got the Tree of Atonement. It's got a 1.5 second cooldown, so you can throw two of them out very quickly, and the area between the two trees, if enemies pass through it, they'll become immobilized. So this is a great way to kind of create a choke point and again control the battlefield. You can get more summon points, so obviously you can throw out your summons more often. You will also be able to get the Call of the Wild, which releases spirit wolves that will deal physical damage and taunt enemies. So again, another way to control the battlefield. There's just some really cool stuff here that will also do great damage, and so I actually really like having her on the team and use her all the time. Like I said in my review, unfortunately I can't go back to previous saves, so I cannot show you what the Empire party member looks like, but that's a breakdown overall of the companions that you can pick up in the game. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Take care.